Everybody, welcome back to the Math Dungeon. We're going to continue our talk about vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are across from each other and they're equal in measure. So I'm starting off with two lines. I've got one horizontal line that is going left to right, and then I've got one diagonal line that is bisecting, right? And that creates a whole bunch of angles. So you notice you've got acute and acute and obtuse and obtuse. So when you're talking about vertical angles, it's easy to identify the two acute angles that are going to be equal and then the two obtuse angles that are going to be equal. So right now they're not really telling us much about these two obtuse, but they are telling us a little bit about these two acute angles, right? So instead of numbers, like if this was 60, we would know that this angle is going to be 60. But they're using algebra, right? They have an expression here, and so we have to think about what to do because question one is, what's the value of x? So if I know that these are equal, right? I'm going to just substitute in the expressions, and see what it looks like after I substitute them in. So I'm going to bring down my first expression, and then I'm going to bring down my second expression. All right, now, we didn't do a ton of this when we did algebra, solving with variables on both sides, but I feel like this is a good step up for some of you who are ready for a little bit of a challenge. And if you're not, just kind of follow along with me. So I want to get all my x's on one side, and I want to move them all together so they're positive. So just like we move integers around to make zero pairs, we're going to do the same thing with our x value. So this is a 1x. That's smaller than my 2x. So to get rid of a positive 1x, I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides of that equal sign. So those are the train tracks. We used those last year, right? And if I have 1x and I take away 1x, that gives me a zero pair. And all I'm left with is 20. 2x minus 1x is our, it was like kind of slipping down, wasn't it? Is our 1x, okay? So in this case, x equals 20. So x is 20. Okay, I'm going to fix this stand before I keep going. There we go. It just needs to be tightened. Perfect. Look at that. Math Dungeon, problem fixed. Okay, next part says, what is the angle ABC? So ABC is this angle right up here. A down to B and over to C. And what expression is representing that? 2x. So that means 2 times whatever we found for x. And in this case, it's 20. So 2 times 20 is 40. So this angle is 40 degrees. Which means if this angle is 40, and we know these are vertical angles and they're acute, obviously we know we did a good job because it's less than 90, then this has to be also 40 degrees. Because 20 plus 20 is 40. And then our last task says, what is the measure of ABD? So A to B to D is this obtuse angle over here. So I have to think about how to find that, right? Well, I know a straight line all the way across is 180 degrees. And I know that I found part of it is 40. So if I know the whole thing's 180 and I take away 40, I could just subtract those. Minus the 40 gives you 140 degrees. Now, if that one is 140 degrees, what does this one have to be down here? 140 degrees. And you should notice that everywhere you're on a straight line, those two angle measures will add up to 180 degrees. All right, so that was our first example. We're only doing two today. It's a catch-up day, so there's no quizzes or Quizlet or Google Form for you to do. It's just extra experience on solving for angle measures, specifically vertical. So our next one is another horizontal line, and we've got a line bisecting it, just a different direction, just to mix things up a little bit. We've got x plus 11 as our expression for that angle, and then 2x plus 2 down here. So you notice, again, we've got two acute angles and then two obtuse angles, and we know vertical angles are equal. So if this one is 110, this one down here is 110. If this is 70, this one would have to be 70. So the question for this one says, we got a line, it's traversed by another line, it's bisecting it, creating angles, and it says, what is the value of x? And then it asks you to find an angle measure. So let's think. Again, we've got vertical angles, we know they're going to be equal. So I've got x plus 11, and then 2x plus 2. So again, I know this is hard because we haven't done this in algebra, but I think some of you are ready for this step. If I want to get all my x's on one side, I want to get rid of my smaller x value. I want to bring it over to the other side. So if this is a positive 1, I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides and end up with 11 equals 1x plus 2. Now this is where most of you should be able to figure out what the next step is. If I want to get x by itself, isolate it, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Cancel out my 0 pair, x equals 9. Now, the first step was just to find x. The next step says, can you find the angle measure? So it shouldn't matter what one you plug into because they're equal, right? 2 times whatever x is, which we found is 9, plus 2. So 2 times 9 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20 degrees. So that's a really small acute angle, right? And then 9 plus 11 is also 20 degrees. So that kind of proves that we did it correctly. If you wanted to find, obviously, the other two angles, you would do 180 minus the 20. So this is 160. So obviously I didn't draw it to scale because I don't have a big protractor right now, but this is just one extra little piece about vertical angles. Remember, today's a catch-up day, so some of you have appointments with me to kind of catch up on work. Updating school tools, so make sure you've checked to see if there's anything that you need to go back and correct. Remember, you can resubmit everything. So if you didn't do as well as you wanted on something, go back in, redo the Google form. If you need me to reset a quizzes so you can redo that, you're welcome. Send me the link or send me a message. I'll send you the link back. All right. Have a great weekend. And Saturday is supposed to be awesome, so get out and enjoy it, everybody.